23 minutes before 8 o'clock, it is our time. Good morning and welcome to Business Focus right here on the Champions League Breakfast. You've got questions for Kudzie in terms of business. Drop them up on our WhatsApp platform 0719 100404. And we are live on our Facebook page as well, Capi Talk 100.4 FM. That is Heartbeat. Good morning to you, Kudzie. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Tinashe. Good morning, everyone.
Great. Okay, let's start with the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, the updates.
Yeah, thank you, Tinashe. So, yeah, I think the ZSC has continued on a positive trajectory, although now we are seeing the gains that we are seeing on the ZSC are a bit measured. They are not as huge as we saw in the first week of the month. So yesterday was no exception, with the all-share index gaining by 1.77%, the top 10 index also putting on 1.86%. And then you look at the top risers and fallers. Mikkels was the top riser with a 14.57% gain. Also Econet following with a 13.11%. RTG putting on 5.13%, Nampec adding 4.17%, and OK Zimbabwe also amongst the top 5 risers with a 3.88% gain. And then looking at top 5 fallers, ProPlastics was the biggest loser with a 2.62% drop. Star Africa also coming through with a 1.23% loss. Delta easing 0.39%. EcoCash also easing by 0.28%, and then ZHL shedding 0.17%. The bulk of the funds that were invested yesterday went into Econet, about $3.1 billion going into Econet. You also saw OK getting about $621 million. ProPlastics, Delta, and EcoCash also got a sizable chunk of the funds that were invested on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. I think the ZSC has actually started the year on a positive note. Although remember, like I said, it's also first, or you also have to consider what is happening with the currency depreciation. Is the Zimbabwe dollar losing value? Remember, the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange trades exclusively in Zim dollars. So when you look at your gains, you also need to factor in what is happening to currency depreciation. You also need to factor in what is happening to inflation. These are key considerations. Any investor has to look at that and make sure that the gains that you are realizing on the ZSC are real gains and they've got value. So that's what we are seeing on the ZSC. And then the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange was marginally positive, up by 0.3%.
Okay. Looks like there are a lot of gains on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange as compared to the VFX. What's the reason?
Look, I think it's also to do with liquidity on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. Most investors were registered to be trading on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, and now they have to open new accounts. You also have to open a US dollar account and so on and so forth. And I think the pace is a little bit slow. And then I also look at the companies. Most of the companies that have migrated. Remember, most of the companies that are on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange are migrated from the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. And when I look at some of those companies in terms of their shareholding structure, their ownership structure, there are some of those tightly held counters. You look at your National Foods, it's a tightly held counter, and also so that's one of the reasons what we have also seen why the VFX doesn't trade as much as the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange in terms of liquidity. It's still a little bit tight on the VFX. And also people prefer to keep their prefer to when people have what US dollars on them, they prefer to put it under the pillow than to invest it. So that's one of the reasons probably why the VFX hasn't taken off as much as you would in terms of activity.
It is Business Focus right here on the Champions League Breakfast on Capital. You have questions to do with business. Kudzie is right here to help us. Drop them up on our WhatsApp platform 0719 100404. You can also drop them on the comment section on our Facebook page, Capi Talk 100.4 FM. Okay, let's look at a question here before we move on to the next subject. Government must come up clearly if the official rate of US dollars to RTGs is clear. I see no need to punish school head who take forex and deposit RTGs. I think it's to do with
it's a no-brainer when you look at the exchange rate. I was actually thinking about it this morning to say yes, Professor Mtuli Nube got his tax. He's now getting that 5% withholding tax when manufacturers sell to non-registered businesses. I think he has got his way, he has got his tax. However, like we said, highlighted yesterday, the elephant in the room is still there. The formal businesses are still stuck with an exchange rate that is not workable, an exchange rate that gives an unfair advantage to those who are not policed as much as your formal businesses. So you're talking of those in the informal sector that can easily trade in any using any exchange rate, using parallel market exchange rates. But once your big formal businesses try to do that, they are breaking the law, which is something that they don't want to do. So they are at a disadvantage. So as much as Tulinube got his tax, the formal businesses are still stuck with an exchange rate that is not workable.
Hi Kudzie, when is the auction coming back?
I forgot to check on that date when exactly it is coming back. Hopefully soon, because I'm sure industry needs that. They were distributing or allotting roughly 18 million US dollars every month, and I'm sure those businesses, most businesses have now reopened, and they will be looking at getting that funding. Well, it's cheap money anyway. If you go on the parallel market, you're getting it at anything above 11,000, and officially you can get it below 7,000. So it's cheap money, and any business that is getting Zim dollars would want to get that cheap money on the auction system. Hopefully, the Monetary Policy Committee can sit before that and make changes to the way the way foreign currency is traded in Zimbabwe. Hopefully, Treasury can listen to the recommendations that were given by Monetary Policy Committee the last time around, when they recommended that we need to remove the 10% trading margin that is giving an unfair advantage to other businesses. So already business lobby groups like CZI has suggested that maybe businesses should be allowed to trade at least 20% below the parallel market rate. At least that will give them a level playing field.
Okay, now that the stock market has started the year on a positive, what are some of the common mistakes that investors tend to make?
That's an interesting one, Tinashe, in terms of the common mistakes investors make. And as much as you have asked about the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, but I think it applies to any investment that you make. There are common mistakes that people make. So as I highlight some of those mistakes, you can also, if you are not a stock market investor, you can also look at that and apply it in your own business. So the first mistake, in my view, that people make, or that investors make, is not investing in knowledge.
Knowledge is power.
Yes, they do not invest in knowledge. Before you find or you invest in knowledge, before you find out enough information, how, what are the markets like, what are the prices like, how can I also produce, how can I produce efficiently, what invest into those things. People do that on the stock market as well. Market but it's a bull run, it's a rally on the ZSC. Investor without investing in knowledge. So for me, that's the most common mistake, when people just invest because so that's number one. Number two is investing without a plan or a goal, without setting goals. So if you don't have a clear investment goal, it means that you are not, you must have an investment goal. For example, why are you investing? Are you investing so that you can retire comfortably? Are you investing so that you can buy a house? Are you investing so that you can pay school fees at the end of the year? You must have an investment goal. Because if you don't have an investment goal, that's they panic sell. So invest in, you must have clear investment goals. And then another common mistake that people make is to ignore their risk tolerance. They ignore their risk tolerance. When they see the market coming off, you don't know 5%, because you don't know your risk tolerance. Auto panic. You can wait 1 week, market is you can wait 1 week, you panic. Right? So you don't know your risk tolerance. You must know I can stomach this loss. Even the Marenda investor, it's not gaining anything for the next few months. Can you tolerate that risk? Right? So you must know your risk tolerance. Because if you don't know your risk tolerance, that's when you panic and you end up making losses. So that's another one. Panic selling. The other one is formal, or fear of missing out. Fear of missing out. That's another investment mistake. For example, Edgar's doing fire these days, and because of fear of missing out, before you invest in knowledge, before you even understand why the Edgar's going up, you just give an order to your stockbroker. I'm taking my Edgar's, buy it, whatever price. And that's fear of missing out. It also applies even when the prices are coming off. There's that fear which about no, if I don't sell now, the prices will continue to go down. So people end up selling. And then again, it applies. I think what you were just saying, you're chasing my hot tips. About some share Rare invested in, and you also wanting to invest into that. So chasing hot tips and trends, I think it's also not good. Another investment mistake that some investors make is not diversifying their portfolios. So you put your eggs in one basket. And when that basket
that's not is it advisable for me to say I buy my shares go Edgar's no to Delta spreading my $1,000? Is that advisable?
Yeah, I think diversification is needed, but it has to be measured as well. I think thinly spreading the 1,000. But it's advisable that you diversify your portfolio, whether you diversify by saying my investments raise up a VFX, Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, raise up a Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, raise into property, raise into money market, you are diversifying. Or you can actually diversify in that particular market. Let's say, for example, on ZSC, you buy my financial stocks, you buy my agriculture related stocks, you buy my manufacturing stocks, you are diversifying. So that's another mistake that people make. They don't diversify, and then they also although Warren Buffett are not diversify, it means that they are not homework by your first investment. So my views are not here.
So could diversify
no, diversification is spreading your risk.
Yes,
you are spreading your risk. You are saying, okay, for example, I'm going to invest in companies that produce food, and then what diversify out food companies are into the telecom sector or digital technology. So you're saying food kunogona kufire rimwe gore, but at some point maybe technology ndoicha fire. So you diversify your risk. Kumwe kunogona kunge kuchidona, kumwe kuchida say so that's diversification. So that's another mistake, maybe failure to diversify. And then in food, trading frequently. So what do I mean by that? You know what is name charges? Charges are ripo. So if I look at Munu, I think an asmangana to tengeza. I think an asmangana to tengeza, you know. I think it's an as mangana to tenga. So you're accumulating my transaction charges. So you're trading too frequently and you end up making losses because unotengesa naso chifungwa kuti azvayakwira ne10%, maybe again chitengesa ndatoita mara ndete. But are you factoring in kuti my costs ekutransact pa ZSC, maybe they are almost close to, if I'm not mistaken, they are close about 4.7% or thereabout. Also there's that tax if you sell before 180 days zakwana, you attract a higher tax than someone admitted for 180 days. So if you trade frequently, urungopa ma broker mari. So that's another mistake that people make. You're actually maybe in a way also ignoring my fees because there's my transaction charges that are there. So these are some of the investment mistakes that I thought I could share with you. Also, some people invest without understanding the companies that they are investing in. And unono investor in a company, maybe for example, for example, Zimbabwe Stock Exchange pane two horticulture related companies, for example, Ariston and Tanganda. Do you know what vanogara miti inonzi macadamia trees? That macadamia tree no gonna 10 years. I'm not sure about the exact number of years, but it takes a number of years before muti, in fact, unongoza miti it muti unotora time before paunodyarwa kuzonotanga kubereka pepe. It takes time. Saka munhu manje kuti akatosa ma revenues e company out, this company is not making money, they are not making any sales, not forgetting kuti no, they invested in trees and the trees are yet to bear fruit for them to start generating revenues. So you need to understand the company that you are investing in. You also need to understand panama company kuti vatengesa, for example, if you look at grocery retailers and it ana okay Zimbabwe and Pick and Pay were listed for stock exchange and it vatengesa inogona kuita revenue 400 million, for example, and it, but do you not profit away money? You're not going to get less than 5 million. You've been selling 400 million, $1 billion. on the as revenue and it, but profit margin is less than 5%. So if you invest in those companies, you say it's kumbeta mari, inga company yakaita mari, but you're comparing a company that has got 5% margins versus a company that has a 20% margin, a 40% margin. So you need to invest, or you need an understanding of the companies that you are investing in. So these are some of the mistakes that investors make.
Okay, there's also another contribution, another one that says another mistake is called the hubris fallacy. And it's when somebody gets so confident that they start to believe they are invincible. As a result, they make foolish decisions that ultimately bring about their defeat.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
That's another contribution. And this one, another question for you, Kudzi. Anzi naimi. Kudzi ngapindurewo muri kutaura zvema-stocks, ma-taxes and so forth. Ko mushandi wacho kubva kune dzimwe mari dzinobatwa nema-employment councils. Ari kumboti nemari idzi kupa vashandi kumabasa uku.
Yeah, well, it's an area that I'm not, that's labor-related issue. But what I understand, of course, when you are employed, there are certain taxes that your employer is supposed to contribute to NASA, for example. I think there are also, if you're a member of a National Employment Council, there are some that you have to contribute. If you're a member of ZCTU, for example, or labor unions, I think there are contributions that you also make. And also maybe from an employer point of view or employee point of view, you also contribute to your medical aid, you also contribute to different pension funds and my deductions. But maybe as something that I have noticed, and some companies might be deducting and antikubatira shoti no iwo une funeral policy tikukubatira mari une vachikubatira even yenasa but not remitting mari dzacho kunasa. Anditi iwo kutofunga kuti handikubatirwa pension uchitotasa pay slip pepe handikubatirwa mari. Anditi after employment, after retirement, no, your company was not contributing. And even if you look at the reports that are released by IPEC, which is the Insurance and Pension Commission, IPEC, it releases kune companies or my employers who are in arrears, who are not remitting. Anenge tokubatira pa pay slip otokuza kuti no tinacho takubatira mari yakati for your tax your pension contribution. But isiri kuzoremitwa kuna pension fund manager wacho. So again, I think they will be depriving you of a better future post retirement. So you need to make sure that your employer pari kudeduct ombonobvunzawo kuti employer doesn't deduct every month, doesn't deduct mari yakati ari kukupa here mari idzodzo dziri kuuya here kuno handiti, because sometimes tinenge tisingaoenda. Ndakambona imwe a listed company for that matter, handiti a listed company after the previous executive yaenda, handiti that's when we heard kuti they were not contributing to NASA and they were in a deep hole. They were not contributing. Mazimura pay, for example, they were not contributing, and the company was now in debt. And so on and so forth. So you need to as employees, you need to make sure that is being done. Okay,
you can find out more to do with labor-related issues with Folake every Wednesday between 9 and 10 o'clock right here on Capital. You hear more on that one. This one says just roughly 4 minutes before we out. Okay, is it possible for a company to be public but not listed on the stock market?
I think it's possible, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's possible. But again, I defer to the experts. They can tell us on those who understand how. But I think it is. Yeah. And let me see. Okay, hi Capital. Can you please tell us about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin? Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm one of those who have never liked investing in Bitcoin. But people have made money in Bitcoin as well. So yeah, people have invested in Bitcoin. I think this year it's actually been doing well. But people have lost money in Bitcoin as well. And also the authorities in different countries, Zimbabwe included, they have not regularized the trading of Bitcoin. I don't think it's allowed here in Zimbabwe to be trading. But I've seen some countries are now warming up to the trading of Bitcoin because we're not on mari. So what they are coming in to do is to put some regulations in terms of how banks can conduct themselves. Because manguma banks, I think muno Zimbabwe yakatombo trader vakazovariswa ne Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. Pakatomboita a company that was offering those services.
My advertising on Bitcoin, it's just too good to be true.
Bitcoin is
I made money.
No. Is it the same?
No, it's not the same. So Bitcoin, of course, it's not a currency, but what they say is that unlike fiat currency, the currency that you use at US dollar, Mazim dollar, and it are no control or no government and things like that. They say Bitcoin I control the government and it cannot be manipulated by governments. So that's but because I haven't invested in knowing much about Bitcoin apart from Ringo surface. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kudzie, for Business Focus, for enlightening us with more information. We'll get to hear more in the world of business. That'll be tomorrow at 7:35 here on Capital.